Now we're going to work on using the split method. So let's make a string. And let's go back to our favorite, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Okay, so we have a string here, and I'm going to divide it with the split method, which will return a list, into individual words. So let's just call this words, or call it junk words, or we call it whatever we want. But let's check this out. Okay. So what this is going to do is it's going to turn that string into a list of the words within the entire string. So let's print this out. And this is really useful for parsing through strings. So let's run this. Oh, it's going to make us save it. There we go. So you can see what this did. It went and just basically pulled the words out of a long string. This is extremely useful to pinpoint and separate words if you have like a giant paragraph or whatnot. Now that we have these, we can get at them on a more individual basis. So let's just check this out. Beat the zero, the. Okay. And as we recall, the 0 is the first index. So for the first three words, we would have to go 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's print that out. Okay, so we have the quick brown fox, or actually the quick brown. We haven't got the fourth word, which would be in position 3, but you get the picture. How this can be useful to be able to parse out the individual words, from a string, possibly a large string, kind of automatically, just really nice. Rather easier than trying to use like a find, and then you get a position and grab from that position and determine where it ends. And yeah, it could be difficult using some of the other methods, but this does it pretty quick. Now, let's say we have a date. So we're going to say the date. And let's come up with a date. Let's say 7/4/1976. Okay, so what we have here is a very common date format. I'm sure you've seen it many places. And let's print it out. Okay, so we printed it out. I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to comment some of this stuff out because we're getting a little busy, and as far as our output's concerned, a little hard to read So what we're going to do is comment that stuff out and just focus on what we're currently typing in here. Okay. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to define that, and we know what it is now. We have a string with a date in it, but we're going to change that. We're going to change the date variable in to a list. So we're going to say the date equals the date itself. Up on the right side is itself as a string, but we're going to apply the split to it. And what that's going to do is it's going to turn it from a string into a list. But one thing we're going to do is, if we just use the default, it's a blank space, and there's no blank spaces in here, so you'd get like a list of one, just one date, and that's really not what we want to do. We want to divide the various parts of this date so we can look at it individually, you know, the month, the day, or the year. And that's really common things you might want to pull from a date. So we notice that the date up here is has a delimiter, and that's a standard date format, a character that we can use to divide it. So we're going to try that, and then we're going to go print, and we're going to print the date. And when we print it out this time, it's not going to be a string anymore, because we used a split, which turned it into a list. So let's run this again. Okay, so you can see the first time we assign it, it's a string, and it's a standard date that you might get. But then we redefined it, or we could have assigned it to another variable, but we just redefined it, that one, because I figured we're working with that. We could reassign these things, no problem. You don't have to, like I said, assign it to itself again, do the reassign. We can put anything we want. Okay, so we have a list. Now we have a list of 07, 04, and 1976. And so basically, we pulled the date apart, got rid of these unneeded dividers, and we have exactly what we need to do any manipulation we have to do of, you know, month, year, etc. So we could go month equals, let's pull it in as an integer, and we could say the date string, and that would be the 0 position that we'd be interested in. And I have cap locks on, which would give me some trouble here that this is Python. May be a little different if we were using SAS, but Python is case sensitive, and at least for me, as far as most of like my really quick, easy to fix syntactical errors usually are with case. I use a cap where I'm not supposed to, or whatnot. So just thing to be aware of in Python. Okay, so let's print that out. So what we did is, and we're just doing this little snippet of a program, but you might have a larger program that needs to extract the month and do all this crazy manipulation, hit it back 6 months, and you could do a whole bunch of math with it. And this is just like I said, a really small snippet that we're just looking at how to do some of this basic date gathering. So let's run this, and we can see we turned it integer with the zeros gone. It is 7. It is the 7th month. And you have it in a format that you're ready to do whatever manipulation you have to do with it. Set it back a month, to do whatever. Maybe you're calculating age. You're looking at birth comparison of a birth date to the current date, whatnot. There could be a multitude of things you're doing with it, and this is just a way you can use Python to get those things accomplished. So let's go ahead and let's try the same for day. Okay, and day should be the first position, which is actually the second position. Okay, and let's go further. Let's look at it for year also. We're just going to do everything here. So year should be the last, which should be 2. Let's run this. There we go. We took a kind of a string format, turned it to a list, and eventually turned it into actual integers that we could work with and do whatever string manipulation we need to do. Okay. Now what I want to do is comment these prints out really quick here, and we're going to look at joining strings together once we have these comments added. Okay. Let's make some new strings. And this string could be someone's first name. And let's say Jill. So you have Jill. Last could be a last name. And let's give her the last name of Smith. Okay. So we have Jill Smith. And if we want to join these strings together, we can just go first plus last. We'd probably want to add a space in there too, but we will just run it. Oh, have to assign it, and let's do a print also if we want to see any results. Okay, so this should be just these two strings just basically concatenated together. Okay, we'd probably want to be a little fancier and put a space in there. Let's run this again. But that's the basic way to concatenate strings together with the plus symbol. You just kind of add them together. It concatenates them. Another thing that you can do is you can do a plus equal. So what I'm going to do now is use this to add. We're just going to put some on the end of it. a period. So this should basically just concatenate a period to the end of the name. Okay, so let's run this again, and then we're see how we print it after we do that. Let's look at our results. Oh, and we have a capital when we didn't need one. Let's try this again. And what you can see is we print it the first time. We have Jill Smith. Then we plus equals, which is going to do that append of a period, and we get basically the same string with a period. So you can use the plus equals to append more information onto a string. Now, one kind of neat thing is you use for populating populating strings is the join. And let's look at a list. So we're gonna make a list. We're gonna call it. Let's call this list toys. Oops. There we go. What we need for list, and we're gonna put a doll in there, and let's put a car in there. Fun things for kids to play with, and a boat. Okay, so we have 3 toys to play with, and let's join all these toys together in something we call bag. And you can see here I'm going to use this string, a blank string. I could use a variety of things, and what it's going to do when I hit join, when I send it an actual list, is it's going to basically get the list, and in between every element of the list, it's going to jam whatever string I have here. If I put a plus, it put a plus. If I put a blank, it would put a blank. And I put a blank space because I think it'd just be easier for the results to read. So let's just run this here. Okay. Oh, we better print it, or else we can run it all we want. We're just not going to see what's in the bag. Let's run this. And what we have is doll, car, boat. And you see how the string that I gave it is used in between as kind of the delimiter from the list. So if we were to do something like this, let's then rerun. You can see we have this. So kind of neat. Although it behaves different when we hand it a string. So let's try handing it a string just to see how it is a little different. So instead of making a list called toys, I'm going to redefine it, and I'm going to say toys. It's just a string that just says car. Nothing more. It just says car. And let's get the bag. We can copy that down. So we have basically the same code. I'm going to change it to the original code, which is the blank. Okay. So basically we have the same thing we're doing, but this time what's really different here is that now instead of a list, this is a list, we defined a list, and instead of a list this time, we're going to pass it just a string. And then see how it behaves different. And when it's just a string, what happens is it doesn't have a list of things to do, and it's going to just go through each character. So it should just grab the A, the C, then the A and the R. So let's print this out. Okay. So you see what it did here. It behaves a little different with the string. It just, as opposed to a list, with the string, it looks at each individual character, kind of like it was an item on the list, and it goes through there. And you can see how that went through there, and we have it set for blank, so you have blank. I mean, if we were to go in and change the blank as what we're going to use as our delimiter, we'd get something like this. And you can see we just going right through the string. We could add more to it. It would just go on as much as a string is. If we put cars and boats and whatever we put in there, it's just going to go through there and use this as a delimiter for that.